Hello there, I was just listening to an orchestra play the musical score from the movie Conan the Barbarian, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And now what I have to do is a rundown of the best and worst movies of 2024, or more accurately, the best and worst of what I watched in 2024. I've really struggled with this list of the best and the worst because from the films I've watched in the last year, I'm not sure there are enough things I liked to do a top 5, and there were so many I disliked that it was hard to whittle them down to just 5. I want to now onto the top 5, and at number 5, well, I'm not sure it's fair, but it's one episode of an anthology TV series, and it's only about 20 minutes long, so how can I compare a 2-hour movie with some minor flaws to 20 minutes that barely put a foot wrong? It's the 5th episode of the series' secret level based around Warhammer 40k. It has fantastic cinematography, some of the most brutal action I've ever seen, it's extremely minimalist, and this setting, Warhammer 40k, it's a great setting. There are frankly some fantastic stories in there to tell, and after multiple unsuccessful attempts to depict this setting, it finally feels like someone nailed it, and it left me wanting more. A lot more. At number 4, Gladiator II. Despite having a weak leading man and a story that was oddly pro-slavery, it aimed more for entertainment than historical accuracy, which it kind of delivered. It still had some beautiful shot composition in there and cinematography to go along with a lot of over-the-top action and acting. It had a battle in a flooded arena filled with sharks, a gladiator riding a trained CGI battle rhino, and after Denzel Washington, the second best performing actor in it was arguably the rhino. It had a weird end, I found it far weaker than Gladiator, and it frankly only made the top 5 due to a lack of competition. At number 3, The Fall Guy. This one kind of surprised me. I didn't go in with high expectations for this film, remake of a series from the 1980s starring Lee Majors, about a down on his luck stuntman who solves people's problems, but it's an action comedy that delivered on both for me. It had charismatic performances from Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, a kind of sweet romance between the two. It made me laugh. I appreciated some of the very innovative use of light early on, even if the ending was maybe a bit weak. At number 2, NOS Feratu. I'd heard great things about this gothic vampire horror going in. I was already fond of the 1922 German silent film it's based on. Sadly, it fell a bit short for me, because although it was beautifully shot, it's kind of a work of art in terms of the visuals. It failed in the primary duty of a horror film for me, being scary. In places, it seemed more like I was watching a remake of The Exorcist instead of a remake of Nosferatu, and for me, many of the changes they made to the original story made it worse and unnecessarily complicated. And at number 1, it's Deadpool and Wolverine. It's an action black comedy superhero film, and it had me laughing right from the start of the film. It doesn't so much as descend into insanity, as it starts there and stays that way for the entire film. Saying it's bold and takes risks doesn't quite cover it, as Deadpool digs up the grave of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and uses his remains to butcher a load of goons while dancing to the music of NSYNC. And that's the film's opening credits. It will go anywhere for a laugh. The fan service, the cameos and the meta humour are all off of the charts. But while watching it, I did notice that it's over 2 hours long, and by the end, it left me feeling a little exhausted and like the movie went on for a bit too long. Still, it was worth it for me just for the laughs. So that's my rundown of what I watched in 2024, and sadly, I don't think I could describe a single thing I watched last year as being a classic. The best things I watched are maybe in the 6 or 7 out of 10 bracket for me, and nothing at an 8 or 9. But what it was a good year for was cinematography. We have some directors that have excelled themselves in terms of visual artistry, and Hollywood seems to have paired them with scriptwriters who fell off of the short bus after huffing too much paint. You may ask, well, what movies would I put as 8s and 9s? Well, maybe something like the Clint Eastwood movie Unforgiven, maybe Gladiator, the first one, or Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. Maybe I should have watched Dune Part 2. Lots of people seem to have loved it last year. The problem is that I didn't watch Dune Part 1. And the reason I didn't is because I hold a warm place in my heart for the 1984 David Lynch version of Dune. So despite the fact I like the director of the new Dune movies, Denis Villeneuve, and I like Dune as an intellectual property, I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. Also not sure about Timothée Chalamet as the leading man. So you tell me, dear viewers, should I give the new Dune adaptation a chance? Because frankly this whole list has left me asking, was 2024 really such a bad year for movies? How many classics should we get in an average year? Or is it that there were truly amazing films released last year and I just didn't watch them?
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.